Hey everybody, Coach Toolshed here, and today's video is not going to be about the Voxpocalypse. No, that is not the purpose of today's video. Today we are going to be discussing an announcement that came out yesterday from Naughty Dog regarding some of their older games, some of their most popular games, and what is going to be happening to them in the very near future. Now what I'm talking about is yesterday Naughty Dog put out a press release discussing how they are going to be pulling the online multiplayer servers down for Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, and The Last of Us on PS3. Now, a couple things about this. First off, you might say, Coach, Naughty Dog makes multiplayer? Yes, they do. Actually, all those games do have multiplayer components, and actually, I think the multiplayer for The Last of Us is actually quite good. I've said that in a couple different videos. It's one of my favorite multiplayer PvP modes that I've ever played. But the announcement said that the servers for last generation consoles for those three games are going to be all pulled down on September 3rd. In the press release, it says after nearly 10 years of servers being running on those three games. And I found that that was an odd little turn of phrase for them to use because, of course, The Last of Us only came out in 2013. So for them to group in The Last of Us as included as a game that has been online for nearly 10 years, that is quite disingenuous. You can say that about Uncharted 2. Even Uncharted 3 has only been up for 7.5 years, so kind of stretching it to say it's been up for nearly 10 years. They're trying to sugarcoat it a little bit because what this really means is a game, The Last of Us, came out. Sure, it's on PS3, it's on last-gen consoles. We don't know exactly how many people are still going on and populating those servers on a daily basis. I know on PS4, when I turned it on today, I had absolutely zero problem finding matches in multiple different game modes. So, like I said, we don't know how that's going to correspond to last-generation hardware. I'm sure the servers are much smaller, much less populated on the PS3, but regardless, what this means is a game that, as of right now, has not yet hit its 6-year anniversary. That'll be coming up later this summer, but a game that has been out for less than 6 years, in just a couple of months, within less than 3 months' time, they're going to be shutting down the servers. Now, we're not talking about a game that was a commercial failure or a critical failure or a game that never had a multiplayer following. I know that a lot of people maybe didn't follow those particular Naughty Dog games for the multiplayer, but they had a loyal and dedicated community. There's several multiplayer channels here on YouTube specifically that only cover Naughty Dog games. They do have a sort of a niche culture here on YouTube. You can find them. And while sure, many of these channels have moved on to PlayStation 4 to play these games, they're playing The Last of Us Remaster now instead of The Last of Us on the PS3. We know that. But if you wanted to play those original versions of Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3, well, unfortunately, the Uncharted collection that was put out by Sony a couple years ago, that does not feature the online capability. That just has the regular standard versions of the game. So while you'll still have the option to get into The Last of Us multiplayer and continue to play that if you have the remastered version on the PlayStation 4, essentially Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3 multiplayer, those are going to be gone for good. You're not going to have access to that. And of course, these are Sony exclusive releases on the PlayStation 4. These aren't games that have PC versions to go back on. You can't have modders keeping the game alive. And what this does, this speaks to an industry-wide issue. Because here you have a trio of really successful games. Now, granted, they were on last-generation hardware, so the population of people playing the games is, I'm sure, like I said, far down from what it would be at its peak. And it's just not profitable for Naughty Dog to keep these servers online anymore. I get all that. I understand the business reality. It's really not that complicated. But from the consumer side of things, here you have three games, and especially egregious, I would say, is The Last of Us, because the game simply has not really been out all that long in the big scheme of things. It'll only be about 6 years after the game launches where it goes offline entirely. So when you look at the other side of things, when you look at the Uncharted side of things, like I said, those games are just going to be totally gone up in the ether. And this speaks to the problem that a lot of people have been talking about recently with games preservation. When these online-only games go offline, when the publishers and developers get together and decide that it's no longer profitable for them to run the servers on these games are essentially gone for good. We can't play them anymore. Now, of course, like I mentioned, on PC it is available sometimes. There's certain games where you can have a community of people keeping the game alive on sort of unauthorized servers. Sometimes even you'll get the developers that'll play along and they won't really have a problem with that. But that isn't always the case for every game, and it's going to happen more and more as we move through time because more and more games over the last decade have been made in the online-only fashion. So as we move further down the timeline into the 2020s through the 2030s, we're going to see more and more of these games getting shut down over and over and over again. And that's just the way the industry is headed. And of course, we know that the publishers don't care about that. The platform holders don't care about that. They want to start streaming everything. They don't care about preserving their own games. And when it even starts affecting something like Naughty Dog, which has the backing of Sony, which has sold millions and millions and millions of copies of all these games, highly successful franchises, you have to realize that it doesn't matter who the developer is, who the publisher is. These games are all going to have a shelf life. They're all stamped with planned obsolescence. Now, when that time is, it all depends on the game. We've seen some games get shut down almost instantly. What about Lawbreakers from last year? That game was a flash in the pan and almost instantly got shut down. There's all sorts of scenarios where we see games shut down their servers within a year or two of the game's launching. Look at games like Evolve. That one got shut down very quickly, and that was a big supposed AAA release from a studio that was pretty well established, and it just wasn't profitable. Pull the plug. Just goes to show we already knew this. We don't own the games. We're paying a rental fee. When we go and pick up the disc, or if we download a digital version of the game, we are just renting these games, especially in the online space. Now with the single player games, hopefully there's more of a preservation effort put in to save some of these games, but people who love these online games, people who have put hundreds and thousands of hours into them, not to mention the microtransactions, the cosmetic skins, and the DLC packs, the map packs that people have put money into. And yes, Naughty Dog does sell cosmetic DLC and all that. They even have loot boxes in Uncharted 4. I know some people don't even know about that. But yes, Naughty Dog does sell loot boxes as well for their multiplayer. What about people who put money into that? All that money is gone. It's all wasted. And some of these games are not that old. So this is just another warning from old Coach. Just saying, before everyone gets all hyped up, it doesn't matter what game it is. If it's online only, just be aware. At some point, the plug is going to get pulled. You look at, let's look at a studio like Bungie. Now that they're free of Activision, you know they're going to try to push a game called Destiny 3 out the door. You know they're going to try to cash in on the Destiny name because it has a certain level of notoriety and cachet in the industry. People know the name Destiny, and now they're definitely going to want to push out a game without the umbrella of Activision looking over them, so they can sort of prove themselves, because the talk about them this whole time has been that Activision is the one holding them back. So Bungie's, you know they're going to try to put out a Destiny 3 within probably the next 2 years. So how long is it going to be before they pull the servers down on Destiny 1 or Destiny 2? Destiny 1 came out in 2014. Based on the timeline we have here with The Last of Us, that could mean that Bungie could make an announcement that they're going to pull down the Destiny 1 servers next year. That's the same time frame that we're looking at. Once again, we have to factor in the difference of the console generations, which of course is a huge factor. There's probably a lot more people still playing Destiny 1, but you get my point. Once the third game comes out, how many people are going to be still playing the game 2 games back? And it's nothing for them to just pull the plug as soon as the game becomes unprofitable. That's the entire problem. And the industry keeps moving further and further down this road. There's really nothing we can do to stop it. We can only just be aware and not get ourselves hyped and start buying into every single online game. We have to refrain from purchasing all these products that are going to be hyped up at E3. Like I said in one of my previous videos, go ahead, select the ones that you really think are really interesting, but we can't keep buying into all the hype and the false promises, especially when all these games we know have a dated shelf life. Anyway, that's it for me, Coach Toolshed. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Please subscribe if you want to stay in tune with the channel. Head forward, and as always, keep it turned to 11. By the way, episode 2 of my Games of the Decade series has now been posted. Hopefully, you'll be interested and go check that out. Hope you enjoy it. Talk to you guys later. Keep it turned to 11.